Vete Sodales. So let's talk about virtual assessment one more time with your host, Justin Schwab. Actually, it's not the last time that we'll talk about virtual assessment, but today I want us to talk about something important. I want us to think about changing our perspective. Because if you're anything like me, your perspective has probably changed a lot since, say, February. For a really long time, but when the world changed dramatically, my perspective changed a lot, and I bet your perspective changed too. So I went looking for one of my favorite flowers. I went looking for a picture of a dandelion, and I found one at Wikimedia Commons, and I was really glad that I found it. When I was a child, I loved dandelions. I liked collecting them, and I liked picking them, and I liked all the different things that children do with dandelions. I liked making little strings of them and rings of them and ropes of them, and I liked the old ones and blowing the seed pods around. My dad was less thrilled about that because my dad liked having a nice green lawn that wasn't full of dandelions. So we had some differences in perspective. But then I started thinking about dandelions in perspective because usually we think of them kind of like this, right? And sometimes we think about them kind of like this when they get older, when the seeds are just about to be blown by the small child or the wind or whatever is blowing them. But if you take a different perspective, like a microscope, this is a dandelion too. Actually, this is the pollen from the dandelion. And I'd never seen it that way until I found this picture. My perspective was radically shifted. And all of us are going through some radical perspective shifts. It affects our assessment practices for sure. It affects our planning practices. It affects what we do with our students. It affects like what we think of as the work that we do as teachers. And sometimes it even affects our own self-concept. Who am I as a teacher? If my concept was what it was for many years, Mr. Schwab teaches Latin in room 307. Shock, horror. I moved to room 305. Whatever should I do? It was different. The door was in a different place. There were shelves in a different place. There wasn't the big storage cabinet, but there were these beautiful shelves. My environment had changed just a little bit, and everything seemed to change too. Well, our environments have changed more than just a little bit. And if your definition was, I teach my subject, Latin, in room such and so at such and so school, and suddenly you're not there anymore, or suddenly it's totally different, that's kind of scary. So, what do we do? How do we go on from there when everything changed? Because dandelion is still the dandelion, right? In some ways, our work has not changed. In other ways, it's changed profoundly. But when you change your perspective, you change your story. All of us have stories that we tell ourselves about all kinds of things. Who am I as a teacher? What is this work that I do? What kinds of assessments and grading practices do I use? What are the purposes of those? What do they tell me? What do they tell the world about who I am? We all have all kinds of stories. And when our perspective changes, our story changes too. So the first step when everything's changed is we have to stop. We have to stop downloading the old story into a situation where it won't work anymore. I used to love this one word processing program. I won't name it, but old people who know me know which one it was. It's not one that's used very much anymore, and I still have a licensed copy of it. So I could still theoretically download that and try to run it on my computer, but there's only one problem. It doesn't run on my computer. The situation has changed. I could download the file, but then what? So I had to stop downloading the old story, and you guys are finding yourselves there. And after you stop, you got to look. You got to try a different perspective, or maybe a bunch of different perspectives. Look at the mature dandelion. Look at the dandelion that's turned white. And those little white things have a wonderful name. If only I remembered what it was. And then we got to listen. We got to listen to ourselves. We've got to listen to the others, our students, our colleagues, our administrators, parents, but listen to what they're actually saying. Don't listen to the thing that you think they're saying. Don't listen to the thing that you thought that they used to say. Listen because everything's changed for them too. And then, just like that dandelion changing from its yellow form to its white form to its stalk to what happens next, then you got to find your community, because we cannot do this work alone. If you'd like to be part of one that we're putting together, great. Get in touch with me. Let me know. If you want to put one together on your own, please do that. But find your community. And it doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to be just like everybody else's community, but you almost certainly need a group of like-minded people to do this kind of work. And what do? We get to know each other, and we craft a better story together. As we're making that better story, that's a more accurate and true depiction of the work that we do in this new and different situation, we're going to start seeing some new patterns, and we're going to start to apply them in new and different ways. We'll come up with things that I call more useful labels, because some of the labels that we've used for years will work just fine, and some of them may not. The label of vocabulary quiz that's graded, that shows me what the student has memorized, and they can't cheat because they're sitting in front of me and I'm watching them, that label and that whole structure probably won't work anymore. But we'll find some labels and some processes and some structures that are a lot more useful. And then, that's a dandelion too. Actually, that's the little individual white things, which have a name with a Latinate derivation. I saw that name, it made me so happy, and then I forgot it. But there they are, flying through the air. And it seems totally random, and probably if they had consciousness, it would seem like all was lost. They've been released from this old flower, the only flower they ever knew. They're flying through the air, and they don't even know where they're going. They don't have any control. You may empathize with those poor little things whose name I don't remember. But then, when the conditions are right, look what happens. For my dad in 1974, this would have been the greatest nightmare imaginable. His nice green lawn totally replaced by a field of dandelions. For young me, 5 years old, it would have been the greatest thing that I'd ever seen. A whole field of dandelions just waiting to be explored. And so whatever your perspective is on dandelions, whatever your perspective is on where you are right now, just know we can't do it alone. We can make a community. We can do it together. And we can come up with something better and brighter and more wonderful on the other side of all of this. So get in touch if you'd like to know more, or go and form your community and let us know how it's going. And until we see each other the next time, Walete Sodaes.